Hi everybody. How many of you have heard of DBT? Probably only a couple of you. Well, your life could change for the better in the next 10 minutes. Now a little bit about me. I grew up, and am still growing up, in a loving and supportive family. But over the past couple of years, I've been struggling with my mental health. I've been diagnosed with eating disorders, depression, anxiety. When I started treatment back in January of 2020, we had this group called DBT. I had no idea what it was, and little did I know, DBT would be a helpful key to recovery. Now, as you probably already know, we are in the midst of a global pandemic. I'm sure you've heard of the quarantine 15 that just feeds into eating disorders, or the quarantine itself that feeds into depression and makes us feel even more isolated than we're already feeling. Suicide rates have gone up. Mental health overall has plummeted since COVID began last year. Therapists went virtual. That's no help at all. Now, I've been saying the letters DB and T over and over again. It's time to actually explain what they mean. DBT stands for Dialectical Behavior Therapy. Within DBT, there are 4 modules: mindfulness, distress tolerance, interpersonal effectiveness, and emotion regulation. DBT uses a process called dialectics. When explaining it in simple terms, it means thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. When using this process, we can conclude that all things are connected, change is constant, and opposite viewpoints can both be correct. I interpret it as more than one person can be right, or black and white doesn't make gray, it makes checkerboard. And by saying that, I mean things don't all blur together. Each part has its own role in the situation. DBT was created in the late 1980s by Dr. Marsha Linehan. It was originally developed for patients diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, but later evolved to be helpful for anyone who struggles severely with any self-destructive behaviors, like eating disorders, substance abuse, self-harm, and the list could go on. DBT has many different coping skills under its belt. I'm only going to go over a couple of them tonight, since we don't have enough time to go over each and every one, but I have my favorites from each module. Emotion regulation is all about controlling your emotion. Check the facts is my all-time favorite coping skill that works best for me and happens to fall under this module. Let's say you're feeling like nobody likes you. How can you check the facts? Well, you can say to yourself, so-and-so just came over yesterday. Or so-and-so just said all those nice things about me the other day. What does this show? This shows that there are people out there who do love and care about you and want to be your friend. And it's true, if you needed to hear that tonight. So check the facts is all about finding the evidence. And most likely there will be none to find, and that will prove that your distortion is false. Distress tolerance is all about accepting your emotion. Accepting your emotion as it is and not trying to change it. Pros and cons is a great coping skill in this module. Let's say you're dealing with urges for self-destructive behaviors. You can weigh the pros and cons. Some pros could be, but are not limited to, maybe short-term relief, or maybe even none. Some cons, I might feel guilty afterwards. It might cause more urges. It won't make me happier long-term, or even in a healthy way. And most likely you'll come to the conclusion that the behavior is not worth it. The behavior isn't worth feeling all those cons. Now, mindfulness isn't all about meditation. Mindfulness is about focusing on one thing at a time. Validation is a very commonly used coping skill under this module. I use this skill by taking a step back from the situation, taking a deep breath, and telling myself that my feelings are valid. That it's okay to feel the way I'm feeling, that it makes sense, And not only do you validate yourself, but you validate others so they feel heard. Give. Give is a coping skill under the interpersonal effectiveness module, and being under this module, it is used for communication with others, as are all coping skills in this module. Give is an acronym for G, gentle, be kind with your words and body language. I, interest, show you're interested in the speaker. V, validate, validate the speaker so they feel heard. E, easy, keep an easy, lighthearted, positive attitude. It's important to note that not every coping skill works for every person. DBT itself doesn't work for everybody. Originally in DBT treatment for 8 months, and recently started going back to groups, because the more practice, the better. You can know everything about DBT and not actually be using it, which is why the practice is so important. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes, just like in a sport. It might not be the most fun thing in the world, but it's worth the chance to get your life back, take your life back from your mental illness. Not only does DBT take time, but it takes a team. The DBT skills group I'm currently in requires a parent or guardian to be with their teenager throughout the entire course, because it's most beneficial that way. It's hard to use DBT when the people around you aren't using it. Validation is a very good example of this, because like I said earlier, you can't just validate yourself, you have to validate others as well. It's also important that you know that it's not the DBT therapy that does the trick. It's the DBT skills group, the DBT skills training. That's where you learn how to put the skills to use. Now, as I start to wrap up, I want to tell you guys something. You are worth it, you are enough, you are beautiful inside and out. You are worthy of recovery and deserve a chance to get your life back. Who knows, maybe DBT will be your helpful key to recovery. Thank you and have a good night.